First off, welcome to the show.
Thank
So,
you.
Kristen, can you share with us how you first got started as a dancer at 19 and kind of what motivated you to kind of get started in the world of adult entertainment?
Yeah, sure. I was, I just turned 19 and I used to go dancing at clubs a lot. So like dancing was like my thing. I would go out with my friends and we would just have a good time. And then I had somebody approach me with a business card and he said, are you interested in dancing? And I thought that he was talking about like go-go dancing because they used to
Mm-hmm.
have that. I don't know if they still do, but so I said, okay, I'll check it out. And then I ended up going to this place, which was totally unexpected, and it, ended up being, a strip club. So it took me back by surprise, and I don't think he was very clear from the beginning, but I think that was probably his intention is just try to get me in there.
Yeah.
But I just kind of decided to go for it at that time because I was young, I was naive, and I needed money.
Were you nervous when you
So
first got started?
yeah, I was very nervous. Yeah, very, very nervous.
Yeah. How long did you do that for?
I would say like on and off for a few years. Like I
Okay.
would go once and then I would leave, try to do something else, like waitress or something, and then I kind of would go back because the money would be good.
Okay.
So
How much
yeah.
money were you making as a dancer?
Um, on a good day, it could be like 1,000 for the night. On a bad day would be like zero. But you,
Yeah.
because at bad days, when it's real slow, you still have to like tip everybody. So you
Mm-hmm.
basically like make enough money to tip, but everyone stays for the good days. I mean, you're there for at the most 7 hours. You can sit and get as many breaks as you want. And then you just walk out with, enough cash to pay your bills for like the week or couple weeks in one day. So
Yeah. So,
yeah.
with the tips, I know you mentioned um, that you would get tips for extra services. What were those like extra services?
Well, do you mind if at all during this interview I have like drink my coffee?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
Okay.
It's morning time, so um so cheers. Um Honestly, being young, I didn't want I didn't expect or anything like that to happen. I was 19, 18, 19. I was naive. You should expect people to ask and people to pressure you in that industry, but I didn't. So when I started, I got asked a lot of questions about like, can I, it's windy here, sorry. Can I like touch you or can you touch me? And I was just like, I feel really awkward about it. And at first I said no. And then over time it became a yes. And it just kind of like turned into like a deal, like a bargain, like per person or whatever their interest was when they came in to see me.
Yeah. What were some of the what were some of the other interests? Was it more so just the touching, or was there some other things going on?
Um,
Any sexual favors besides that, I guess? Just
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was well, mostly was like touching, but like it was like I would say started with that, and then it would get into like guys wanted to perform like oral services, or some of them asked for it. Most of them wanted to give because I feel like a lot of them were in relationships with or marriages where their wives weren't interested anymore. And not a lot of people asked for like we'll start in this position. We'll get into later, but in this position, I wasn't really asked a lot for like sex. I was asked a few times, but it was more like either like touching or like oral.
Okay. Would this take place in the club, or would you meet them outside of the club, like at the house or the car or
This
anywhere
was inside the
else?
club, like inside
It's
yeah, like inside the
like a
cubicle
private room,
area.
cubicle area. Oh, okay. Would you feel uncomfortable at first, I guess, when you first started doing it? Like, what were the emotions going that you were going through, I guess, when you first started doing, you know, the oral services and the other things?
Uh, yeah, I was really uncomfortable. I mean, sometimes you find a guy that you're attracted to and you're like, this is exciting. But overall, it's just like, I don't know, I guess for me in the back of my mind, I felt like something was off, you know? But I don't know it. I just did it anyway.
Yeah. Did you ever get to a point where you eventually felt comfortable, or you never got to that point?
I felt more comfortable, yeah. It's
Yeah.
almost like it became my natural thing, like it became my job. I felt like it's almost like I was becoming what's the word I'm looking for? Like a blank slate, not a blank slate, but like detached from intimacy.
Hmm.
So sex just a thing, sexual favors just became a thing, you know? There
Yeah.
was no, and even when I got into relationships with guys, like romantic relationships, it felt tainted, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so after a few years as a dancer, I know you transitioned to offering massages and escorting. What led you to make that change or that shift?
Um, so I was a personal trainer after being a dancer. I got a certification and I got really like big into lifting. And during that, I ended up developing an eating disorder and I left personal training. And I was scared because I had no money, I was young. I just, everything was overwhelming to me. So I just decided to do massage and my history with the dancing kind of matched up with with being, I guess, comfortable with doing massage.
Okay.
And I think my subconscious, like it just subconsciously, I was just like, this is something I could do to make money quick. So I just got into it like that. So I went from personal training to doing the massage.
Was it just regular massages, or was it more so erotic type
Um,
massages?
yeah, it was erotic massage for sure. I mean, I would offer for regular massage, but like 90 something percent of people didn't want that. And I would say like 99% of my clientele were men. Then again, I was also advertising on Craigslist, so
Oh, okay.
you know, I knew what I was doing, but at the same time, I had like a inner conflict inside my head.
So were you offering like happy endings, or was there more so just like the clients they would approach you with that and you kind of got involved with any happy endings or whatever?
I think it was both. Like, I think they approached me, and then I also knew it was like the way to make money, you know?
Hmm.
And I just like I just remember not really having good boundaries because in the adult industry, you have to have good boundaries. You have to have self-respect. If you are going to ever go into that and see what it's like, you have to really make sure you stand up for yourself. And I didn't do that, I didn't have that. And it would just start with like, happy endings and then guys, be like, "Oh, come on, can you take your clothes off? Can you do this? Can you touch me here? What if I give you an extra, a couple $100? Like, what else would you do?" And the pressure kept building, and I allowed myself to do whatever I had to do.
Yeah. I guess, did you abuse any alcohol or drugs um to kind of get you through it? I know I spoke to another person before and they kind of they abused drugs and also they kind of had like a different persona, I guess. They kind of detached themselves from who they were to be able to do those things. I didn't know if that was similar for you, like maybe you abused drugs or alcohol, or maybe you created like another person that kind of detach yourself from doing those things. Is that similar for you, or
Um,
did you just kind of it you got pressured and
like,
you just kind of did it just because to make money
well,
or just because of the pressure?
no, that's a good question, honestly. That's a good question. I mean, I did see that a lot at the strip clubs. I saw a lot of women like that were alcoholics or drug addicts because I think that that's the way, like you said, they had to cope.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I did drink occasionally, but I didn't really develop a drug or alcohol addiction. Like I've actually had more of a codependency addiction in my life, growing up with like codependent parents and like people pleasing. So I think like that was already ingrained in me as a kid. So
Oh,
like
okay.
that is how like I coped with it. Like I just felt it was almost like my obligation. Like if I said no or did something wrong to upset somebody, like I almost took on that responsibility. So it almost became like my entire personality and like my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know earlier you mentioned you developed a eating disorder. What was the eating disorder?
I had anorexia and I'm actually still recovering from it. It takes a very long time.
With the
Coffee.
anorexia, I guess how did it start? Like what started
Um,
that?
like in the business that I was doing.
Yeah, like yeah, what do you think developed the anorexia or the eating disorder?
Well, I mean, I was always an overexerciser, even in high school. Like I was a runner and I did all these kinds of things. And I was always like obsessed. I think girls were obsessed with their bodies, being young. But you get into the industry and, thick wasn't a thing back then. Okay, I'm 36 years old now, so I don't know how cold they are now, but that wasn't a thing. You had to be fit. You either had to be fit or slim.
Yeah,
Most places I were at. And so if you had a little belly or something like that, they're like, you gotta lose that. So like for me, like when I was exercising a lot, I would try to burn off everything and I had nothing. And the second I stopped doing that and I would just eat like a normal female, like I would get that. And that was a very big insecurity for me. And every place that I went to, if I wasn't in shape, they would tell me to lose that. And it really wasn't anything. It was like nothing, but it made me insecure because being with somebody, okay, having somebody who has had overexercise for their whole adolescence. I don't know if it's so windy here. I'm sorry.
I know it's okay.
Trying to get it to stop. Okay. Yeah. Like I've always been very physically fit. And so the thing is with eating disorders and like the way the body functions is that when somebody has been restricting and somebody has been overexercising, and the second they stop and they start eating normally again, they start getting like chunky around the middle. And I kind of didn't understand that. And I always thought I was just like weird looking, and then I would go to these places and either the women, they were really skinny, or they were just fit everywhere with a flat stomach. You know, like they may have had like thicker legs or just, but they would all like be tiny in there, you know? And I would just feel so insecure about my body. And then I would see other women like that, you know, women like me, they were also told to diet. And from then on, I just kind of felt like ashamed about, you know, what my body was doing, how my body was. And my goal at that point was just to have a flat stomach and be like everybody else.
So who told you to diet specifically? Like what was that clients or was that the
No.
gym? I guess you,
It was the owner of the club, the strip club.
oh, okay.
Yeah. They tell you like you go in and they're like, get undressed and then let me have a look at you. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So it started early on, then basically,
Yeah.
and you're still dealing with it now.
Yeah, it takes a while. It's been 5 years, and I just found out from my dietitian that the average recovery is like 10. So, like, I'm more than weight restored. If you look at me, people think that I'm fine, I'm healthy, you know? Actually, I have a lot of fat on my stomach now. But I'm at a place where, like, I'm totally okay with it because I'm healthy. But back then, I would have been so uncomfortable and ashamed, you know? It's it's a shame because between people that have been yo-yo dieters and people that just are different, like women that have naturally carry more body fat, I think all body types should be accepted and people will literally kill themselves just to be accepted. So,
How is it for you, like on a day-to-day basis, dealing with that? Is there a lot of days where you're sad or depressed, or is it just,
yeah.
I guess, can you explain it to me more? I don't know too much about anorexia, so I'm just not, trying to
Yeah.
make sure I don't ask any
Um,
questions that seems like it's, I don't want to seem inconsiderate or whatever. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the eating disorder and kind of what you go through on a day-to-day basis.
yeah. You're good. I'm a little scattered right now in my brain because like I have good days and bad days.
Mhm.
So like
Are there days that you eat with no issues, or like, are there other
yeah.
days where you don't eat at all, or do you try to
Um
avoid
I
food some days, or like how does
like
what?
okay. So like for me personally, this is my third time. Like I relapsed like twice. This is my third go. This is the
Mhm.
longest I've been, and for the last 5 years, I've never tried to actually lose the weight that I have gained. No matter how big I've gotten, no matter what, because each time I like tried to get better, I went from like under 100 pounds to over 200. It was just the way my body wanted to like protect itself. And then I would slowly kind of drop down to like somewhere between 160 to 180. And I do have a lot of muscle too, because I, you know, did bodybuilding, but I do also have a lot of body fat, and that's totally okay. Um, but the thing with my recovery is that there's so much internal damage that you can't see. Um, So when, you know, I had other people tell me it was only going to take a couple years, I was expecting to feel pretty good in a couple years. But even with consistent eating, I still feel I have a lot of days where I am just like wiped out. I'm hungry, you know, I'm tired. I might be a little moody. Um, Things like I can normally do, I feel very overwhelmed. And when you're eating properly, all those things like they go away. Anxiety and depression are like really like um heightened by malnutrition. And when you've had an eating disorder, you can see how that affects like your brain. And all that stuff. So like the way I'm going through it right now is I'm kind of going through like a burnout phase where I like went to like my regular job for a while, did too much, and now 5 years in, I'm experiencing a significant period where I need more nourishment and more rest. So I don't know. Is that I'm kind of going off in a circle
No,
here,
you're
but
no, you're
question.
answering my questions. So is there any therapy that you do or any meetings that you have to go to? And also, are there other people that maybe like those programs that you do to help others that are dealing with those same issues that you're going through?
Um, I would see a therapist here. I used to see one in Michigan, but in Arizona, it's very difficult to get one. They're I don't want to say like their unemployment or their that the program here for like food assistance and all that stuff. They're not as helpful, so it's very difficult. So I unfortunately don't see one now, but I did pay for a dietitian, and I am going to a support group. So I'm looking forward to that.
So I know you stepped away from the industry multiple times. What were the factors that kind of drew you back, and what eventually made you leave for good?
Okay, so when I moved out from Michigan to Arizona, I got actually licensed in massage therapy legitimately. It was something during my recovery, I felt like at the time, mentally I was okay. I knew I would be in a good place mentally. And physically I felt like I could do massages at the time. So I ended up, going to school, getting licensed. And then once during my eating disorder recovery, which started in 2019, I should say my third attempt, um, I did get into an abusive relationship, and it became to the point where he was financially dependent on me, and I, I was not doing great with my health, and he took advantage of me, and I was very naive, so I utilized that industry to make money for him, which is terrible. So I did that, and then ended up leaving, and I ended up leaving him. And then very recently, I moved out to Arizona with my degree, but unfortunately, the process of getting my license in Arizona was very difficult. They're very unorganized here, and the process took like 6 months. And in the meantime, I had to survive. So there was a couple times where I actually did like the happy endings to make some cash so I could eat, you know, and then eventually got my license, and I was good from there. So that's about that.
So I know the industry obviously must have given you some wild stories, and you probably dealt with a lot of crazy things, I'm pretty sure. Do you have any stories that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, so like I had some really weird people. I want to say weird, but like damaged. Anyone that you work on that has, I don't know, you can say red flags, I guess. Like there's usually emotional damage somewhere from childhood. So, I mean, I've had a lot of people like that. I'm sure a lot of other people experience people like that, people that are very demanding or um, not respectful. I don't know. And so going into that with like a specific story, like when I was doing the massage, like I had this one guy that I think he had narcissistic personality disorder. And you have to be so strong to deal with people like that. I mean, I know that's coming from trauma, but if you don't have boundaries with people that have, narcissism, I don't know if you've dealt with anyone like that, you will get walked over. So, I used to go to him on a regular basis, and it turned into him wanting like me to like literally like tie up. Can I say whatever I want here?
Of course, you can.
Okay. So like he wanted me to like tie up his balls and like like tie him onto a doorknob and like just basically beat the shit out of like out of his balls. Like just beat him to the point where like he would like get off to it. So it's like, okay, this is kind of weird. This is not my thing, but whatever he wants it, that's what he wants. And I was really uncomfortable, but I had to actually pretend that I enjoyed it. And it just gave me like the ick inside. Cause like, first of all, he was so disrespectful. Like he disrespectful. It's, it's hard to explain because he would never try to like broke me or he would always try to make sure I was okay, but disrespectful in the fact that like it's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain if you don't understand somebody that has narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder. They come off really charming, they come off respectful, but then they do things that they kind of mess with your head. So anyway, so I would do that for him and he would actually like say, "Oh, you enjoy this, do you?" And I'm like in my head, I'm like, "Oh my God, get me out of here." you know? And that's what I did. And he just kind of like had these weird requests, and I think he wanted more of a relationship for me because he would invite me over to watch like movies and stuff like that. And a couple times I did just to, I don't know, feel like to keep, if I felt like if I didn't, I would lose a client. But it just felt very strange. And I felt like I was investing so much of my like soul and my energy and like just into something that was really not serving me at all. Like it's kind of comical now, because it's such a waste of time. Yeah, uh, talking to a narcissist, no offense, is like talking to a wall. All they do is talk about themselves. Like that's what I do. So yeah.
Y'all start dating?
What's that?
How did y'all start dating?
Well, we didn't really date. I just like I think he wanted something like just by his intentions. And I just kind of like was a friend and I would go and watch like movies and stuff like that. And then at that point where, excuse me, he told me to mop up the floor. And then I think we got into a debate about politics. And he called me like a don't play the devil's advocate or something like that. I don't even know what was going on. He like raised his hand at that time. I didn't mention that yet, but he raised his hand to go hit me
Hmm.
and never came back.
Mm.
So,
Well, we're coming up to towards the end of our interview, so I do have one final question that I ask all my guests.
okay.
Sorry about that. And that final question is, from your perspective, for our listeners, what would you say turns women on romantically and sexually?
What turns the guy clients on or me?
Oh, what turns women on romantically and
Oh,
sexually?
what? Oh, women.
Yes,
Okay. This is subjective, though. I mean, I could
I
say that,
agree.
yeah. I mean, there are some women out there that are going to say one thing, and then honestly, first of all, I feel like there's a certain place that you're coming from. A lot of women, especially that are working in this industry, I feel that are emotionally damaged. I really feel that there's not a lot of strong, independent women that can get in, do their job, get the money that, they deserve and use it for like a better future. There's very few women that can do that. Most women that go in there have to cope with some way, whether it's drugs or alcohol, or they're dealing with codependency and they feel like they have to please, all these people and they just break down, right? So like if you're coming from a place of damage, you're going to want something different sexually. It's just whether you realize it or not. But if you're coming from a place like from what your soul wants, uh, it's very different. And that's kind of like the transition and the process that I'm going through right now. So, like, I've always deep down wanted to be with somebody that respects me, that I'm crazy about. They're crazy about me, and we get along and we're attracted to each other and we have a really deep connection. But when you start becoming tainted, when you start losing what you truly want and deserve, you start seeking that in people that don't serve you. And it's almost like you start trying to make that happen with somebody else. So, like, if you can heal from that genuinely without, you know, saying too much more, um, is that at this place right now of growth and wisdom, I really am more turned on, not by, I'm turned on more about a person's character. Of course, I have to be attracted to them. It's just human nature, but I'm more attracted to how somebody treats me and how they communicate with me and um, just a really deep, soulful connection. And that is more meaningful than like somebody giving me validation in the past, making me think that that was a soulful connection, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And that was
Yeah.
a great response to my question. I appreciate that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know it's very subjective, but I just always ask that question. And that's what kind of made me start this podcast was because I had friends and family members who were all guys felt like women wanted the same thing. And I knew that wasn't an accurate like thing to think. Like all women don't want the same thing. Like women are different. So that's why I kind of started this podcast and
Okay.
wanted to get the experiences and stories from women who've been in the adult entertainment industry, as well as ask that final question is, what turns women on sexually and romantically, just to let guys see that women have different responses. So I do appreciate your response. It was a very
Yeah.
good one. So it made a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
I hope I didn't ramble too much. Sometimes like my brain literally like will go off a mile a minute.
No, you didn't ramble too much. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk with me. I really do appreciate it. So I hope you have a good day and I'll be in
You
touch with you.
too.
Okay.
Okay. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.